Hi, this is Corey Franklin with Remembering the Past, the show where we talk about people who've died recently who've had a profound effect on our history, our society, or our culture. And tonight we're going to talk about Davy Jones, the monkey, who died at 66 recently. And Davy Jones was a really talented, fun guy. He was the heartthrob of the Monkees, and he's got a really great story. He was born in Manchester, England. He was a short kid. He was 5'3", so he started out as a jockey when he was a young boy. A lot of the horse owners at the stables he worked were involved in show business, so he got into show business, and he got into the touring company of Oliver as the Artful Dodger. That touring company made it to the United States in 1964, and Davy Jones became one of the answers to one of the classic rock and roll trivia questions. The date is February 9th, 1964. One of the most important television shows in television history was on a Sunday night.
And now, here he is, Ed Sullivan.
Thank you very much. Now, yesterday and today, our theater's been jammed with newspapermen and hundreds of photographers from all over the nation, and these veterans agree with me that the city never has witnessed the excitement stirred by these youngsters from Liverpool who call themselves the Beatles. Now, tonight, you're going to twice be entertained by them. Right now, and again in the second half of our show. Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles.
The Beatles' first performance on Ed Sullivan. Who was the other future rock and roller who was on Ed Sullivan that night? The answer is Davy Jones. As a 17-year-old Artful Dodger in the touring company of Oliver, Ed Sullivan had him on between Beatles performances. Had it not been for the Beatles, he might have been the star that emerged from that show. Here he is while all those screaming girls wait for the Beatles' second performance.
Now, from Lionel Bart's musical hit Oliver at the Imperial Theater, here are the youngsters of the show and the English star Georgia Brown. Let's have a wonderful hand for it.
All right, then, Dodge, let's show them how the quality gentleman treats their ladies.
Yeah.
How's it go, darling? It's all bowing and that's all.
And give the chop, Betty Jones, dangling the mud, my darling.
And I shall go last.
No, I shall go.
No, I shall go last.
I'd do anything for you, dear. Anything for you. Mean everything to me. I know that I'd go anywhere for your smile. Anywhere for your smile. Everywhere I see.
Would you climb up here?
Anything.
Well, Daffy do
Anything.
leave me all your will.
Anything.
Even fight my will.
What? Fisticuffs I'd risk. Everything for one kiss. Everything, yes, I'd do anything. Anything for you.
A lot of those girls screaming for the Beatles that night didn't know within 3 years that they'd be screaming for the Monkees and that boy who was singing I'll Do Anything. But Davy Jones knew it. He saw the reaction the Beatles got and said, this rock and roll business is for me. And he signed up immediately with Screen Gems. He put out an album that didn't do much. Here's one of the songs from the album. It's called My Dad. It's a great song. It's sort of the baby boomer version of Oh Mine Papa. It was written by Barry Mann, who wrote You've Lost That Loving Feeling. And it was made famous by Paul Peterson, who sang it on the Donna Reed Show. But Davy Jones did a pretty good version of it here.
My dad, oh, I love him so. And I only hope that someday my own son will say, my dad.
Yeah, great song. If you ever get a chance to hear Paul Peterson's version of it, you should. It's a good Father's Day song. In any event, that didn't do much for Davy Jones' career. But it's late 1965, and we now come to a man whose program we did a couple of months back, Bert Schneider. He and his friend Bob Raffleson had the idea to do a show based on A Hard Day's Night about 4 kids playing a musical group, sort of a mix between the Beatles and the Marx Brothers, and it was the Monkees. Here's part of Davy Jones' audition reel with the Monkees, and I think this is Bert Schneider and Bob Raffleson questioning him.
Davy, let me ask you one thing. Did you start off like, are you a Kentucky colonel's son? I mean, you know?
No, my father's a fitter. He's an engineer. He's a an engineer on the railways, you know.
How did you get into show business? How did that all start out?
Oh, I used to act at school and whatnot, and they said I should be an actor. I left school when I was 14 and a half, went to be a jockey. I practiced to be a jockey for about 6-7 months. Then I finally got on a horse, started to ride, and thought this was the life. In the rain, 5 o'clock in the morning and everything like that.
Hey, Davy, jockeys aren't big guys, are they? How tall are you anyway?
About 5'3".
The girls like that size or what?
Well,
You have trouble adjusting with 5'3".
In boots, I'm 5'3". Yeah, no, I don't have trouble adjusting. I kind of like tall girls, yeah. It's kind of groovy, but...
Well, no, I didn't ask you that, Davy.
Yeah.
I asked you whether or not they like you. You haven't got any hair on your face.
No, there's a funny bit. I went into hospital, I had my appendix out, you see, and I go into the hospital, and she says, okay, shaving time.
All right, Davy.
I said,
Get the story. Hey, haven't you got any clean thoughts? You look like such a clean kid.
I am a clean kid. They may put my hair over my ears and all this shit. I'm really a clean-cut kid,
Yeah.
And they made me do this.
Take off the hat. I want to see what the hair looks like.
Doesn't it look great?
Hey, Davy, let me ask, what bag are you in?
What?
What bag are you in?
Bag?
Yeah.
I don't get that.
All right, let me ask you something. I mean, like, do you make a folk sound or a rock sound or anything like that?
I make a terrible sound. But
Hey, let me see you do the song and dance you do.
Song and dance?
Cartwheel, something. Do something, quick.
A song and... You must be joking.
No, I'm not.
What do you want me to do? Sing?
Dance, one of your little quick things. Hey, Davy, you want to know something? Honestly, hold it for a second.
What?
I really think you should have been a jockey.
Well, over 400 kids tried out, including Stephen Stills. Stephen Stills didn't make it, but his roommate, Peter Tork, did. Peter Tork talks about his first impression of Davy Jones.
Davy actually didn't audition for the show. He was pre-cast. They had him in mind in the first place, and the rest of us were just kind of scrabbling in. My first memory of Davy is not too complimentary. The first time I saw him, he marched through the auditioning process. The rest of us were in what we call cattle call. A dozen or two of us in the waiting room. He had an air about him that, well, I'll tell you the truth, I was a little chagrined that he was, able to just walk into the producer's office, and I had to wait my turn.
Peter Tork got over that animus very quickly, and Raffleson and Schneider picked the right group. They put it together well.
It ended up 3 groups of 4, and they put Mickey and I together, and Mike and Peter were with 2 other boys, and then they put the 4 of us together, and that's when it kind of clicked.
Hey, we're the Monkees. Hey, we are the Monkees. You know we love to please. A manufactured image with no philosophies.
Mickey Dolenz was funny. People used to laugh at him and used to do these characters. And Peter Tork was the sympathetic one. And Mike was more of the authority, the older person within the band. I was this little, cherub, heartthrob, kind of no hair on his body kind of guy.
Yeah, Peter Tork knew they had it knocked, too.
I have to give the producers credit. They didn't say, okay, who's going to be our Paul McCartney? Okay, who's going to be our Ringo Starr? They got the 4 best guys they could find that had any kind of a fit. And they looked around, they shuffled the pictures and the cards, and they went, this bunch. Davy was the cute front one, that McCartney. He was also the shortest. That could have been Ringo.
So that was the birth of the Monkees. Very shortly on, they were derided for not playing their own instruments or doing their own stuff. But in reality, they were one of the best musical groups of the 60s. This is because they had Don Kirshner selecting their songs and their musicians, and we did Don Kirshner last year. He had the Wrecking Crew, the best Los Angeles studio musicians playing behind them. They had the best songwriters. They had Neil Diamond, they had Boyce and Hart, they had Carole King and Jerry Goffin. They had wonderful songwriters, and they put together just enough musical talent to make some of the best songs from the 60s. Here's their first hit. It was a #1. In fact, it topped the chart over the Beatles' latest records and the Beach Boys' Good Vibrations. In 1967, by the way, the Monkees sold more records than either the Beatles or the Rolling Stones. So all critics aside, you've got to be doing something right. And the music still stands up today better than most. This is one of the biggest songs of 1966, and it was written by Tommy Boyce and Bobby Hart, who also wrote the Monkees theme song.
Take the last train to Clarksville and I'll meet you at the station. You can be here by 4:30, 'cause I've made your reservation. Don't be slow.
Well, Mickey Dolenz was the frontman on that one, but Davy Jones did some of their best songs. He had an experienced, trained voice, and he knew how to interpret a song. Here's a Boyce and Hart song that he sang.
I wanna be free, like the bluebirds flying by me, like the waves out on the blue sea. If your love has to tie me
Here's another one he did, and it's one of my favorite Monkee songs, penned by Neil Diamond.
Last scene, all kinds of sorrow this time. Only love one to look out. Here comes tomorrow. Oh, how I wish tomorrow would never come. Mary, I love you. Sandra, I love you.
But the song Davy Jones will forever be known for, they're still playing today at weddings, is Daydream Believer. Most people don't realize it, but the Monkees had great songwriters, but they also made the careers of several people. Daydream Believer was written by Jon Stewart, who had been with the Kingston Trio. He wasn't going anywhere. He wrote Daydream Believer. It wasn't going anywhere until the Monkees people picked it up. They asked him to change one word. At first he refused, and then they said, you don't change it, we won't take the song. He decided to change it. Davy Jones made it into a huge hit. Other people have recorded it, and it became Jon Stewart's annuity. The Monkees also helped out people like Paul Williams and Harry Nilsson get established by singing their song. But this is Davy Jones' legacy song, written by Jon Stewart.
Cheer up, sleepy Jean. Oh, what can it mean to a daydream believer and a homecoming queen? Cheer up, sleepy Jean. Oh, what can it mean to a daydream believer and a homecoming queen?
Big song. The Monkees were touring, making records, big TV show. They were on top of the world. In fact, you know who fronted for them for a while? Jimi Hendrix. Here's the story, told by Davy and Mike Nesmith.
It happened that Mickey saw them at the pop festival, Monterey Pop Festival, and he thought Jimi Hendrix was a pretty crazy-looking guy and very much a vaudevillian in a sense, you know, playing the guitar with his teeth and doing all kinds of weird things. But he dressed up, you know, and got ready for the act just like every other entertainer.
He was theatrical.
And
he was also from Mars, which was a big help. Except every time Hendrix would go on in front of us, the crowd would be out there. Every lick he would go, Foxy, and the crowd would go, Davy. Finally, he walked off the stage.
Well, you know, that wasn't my fault, was it?
Good guy, never took himself too seriously.
It was a hard day's night on television every week. It had no storyline. It had no plot. It was just a fun time that kids could be, you know, sort of getting something out of the refrigerator at the same time as watching the TV show. So there was there's no undercover sort of presentation that we didn't put out right in front of their eyes. It was a great fun time.
What were the Monkees like together?
Brothers in arms, you know. I mean, this is not something. We have a legacy that has never been sort of troubled by comparison. I mean, John Lennon said that, you know, the Monkees are nothing like the Beatles. They were more like the Marx Brothers, you know. I mean, no one's ever copied and had a success like we had. And it's all about timing. The timing of the Monkees was very, very much due to the success of the Beatles and the Free Society and the openness that was going on. But, you know, there was a lot of things happening in those days, and we were professionals, and we're told when we talked about drugs, we said, oh, no, we don't drink Coca-Cola. And when we talked about the Vietnam War, we didn't talk about, you know, shooting and fighting and killing. We only did that in the movie. When you become a celebrity, you become better looking, more attractive, more articulate, more intelligent, all these things that you're not really. And that's the problem that most of these celebrities have these days, that they're trying to keep up with their images, which they can't, because it's somebody else who has an image of who you are, and then you have to live up to that because you tend to start believing it. We never did articles with the New York Times, or we were never on Time magazine, and all we ever did was like 16 magazine and Teen Beat and Tiger Beat, and when the press release was made, you know, it was made by Columbia Pictures and Screen Gems, and they made sure that whatever was promoted and put out was of teenage, you know, standard, and that they saw with the Monkees was never controversial. We never sang like Bob Dylan about the times they are changing, and we just had Neil Diamond and Neil Sedaka and Cal Bear Sager and Lieber and Stoller and Barry Mann and Cynthia Wilde and Tommy Boyce and Bobby Hart. Our songs, Fred
no conflict with what we did. The conflict came after we did it because people went, wait a minute. We opened the door and let that in, and just because we didn't have an interview with the Daily News in New York or Inquirer or these magazines who could not get to see us, they decided to make it bad publicity. And we didn't do this and did. You think the Turtles played on their own albums? You think the Beach Boys did? Do you think that the Grassroots? Do you think the Byrds? Do you think Paul McCartney played the French horn on Penny Lane? That's bollocks, man. I don't have my gold records. I have 40 gold records. I only have one sitting in my music room, and it's Daydream Believer. We had a hit with Little Bit Me. Valerie was a big hit. I Want to Be Free. Paul Williams' songs that he wrote for me, like Someday Man, and songs that Carole King wrote, like Man Without a Dream. Rock and roll is a wonderful thing. Music is an endorsement to mingling souls. Music mingles souls. And I don't go out there and say, who I used to be. Who I am is who I am now.
Peter Tork has some final words on Davy Jones.
First, Davy came into the group basically not doing much more than playing tambourine and maracas. He was the rhythm musician and obviously the cute front center guy. But I have to tell you that Davy Jones was an enormously talented man and a great musically gifted person. Davy could do anything musically, but if you gave him something with some real screaming soul rock and roll in it, he would do it better than anybody else in the band. He was just so gifted in so many ways. When we did some of the reunion tours and did the later album, Davy sang the Hippie Hippie Shake and scorched it. I'm telling you, he scorched it.
Goodness sake, I got the hippie hippie shakes. Yeah, I got the shakes. I got the hippie hippie shakes. Wow!
The heat and the storm of the controversy over the fact that the Monkees didn't play their own instruments on the first couple of albums. We were on stage, I remember it was Osaka, Japan. We hit the pocket. That's a kind of a musical expression, meaning that the playing seemed to meld and the individuals were no longer separate beings. There was this great unity in the music. And Davy says that he came over yelling at me, screaming over the kids and over the top of the music. He yelled, "We're going to form a group, Manchester Cowboy." He's what he called himself. His vowels and consonants remained Mancunian. He used to say you come from Manchester. But his, the way he spoke became much more American. So I understand that he saddled up and was about to mount, and he said, I don't feel so good, I better sit down, and passed away almost instantly thereafter. He always said he wanted to die on a horse. He came very close to doing that.
You once thought of me as a white knight on his steed. Now you know how happy I can be.
When we first met, I didn't get to appreciate Davy for a little while. Since then, I came to admire many of his qualities just hugely. I discovered a heart. Davy had an extraordinary heart, and to have shared in that is actually one of the great pleasures of my life.
A fitting tribute to Davy Jones and the Monkees, one of the most underrated musical groups of our generation. Well, I want to thank my producer Sid Tepps, and we're going to close tonight with what I think is Davy Jones' best song with the Monkees. As I said before, they helped make some musical careers, and one of the musical careers they helped make was Paul Williams. This might be the best song that Paul Williams ever wrote. It's called Someday Man.